Okay, hello everybody. Again, this is Anthony Sanchez. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Customers First Now. We're going to get started. We have a great presentation set for you today. I just want to thank everybody for joining us here on the CX Leader webinar this month, where we will be talking about the topic of voice of the customer. I also wanted to remind you that we encourage you to ask your questions by typing them into the questions panel on the GoToWebinar control panel. So you can send your questions at any time, and we'll get to them right after our speaker is done with his presentation. Okay, so what I'd like to do is introduce our guest speaker today. We're very excited to have him here. He's from Medallia, one of the leading VOC vendors in the market. Fred Mondragon is the VP of Partner Development at Medallia, and he's been at the company for over 6 years helping to build their partnership program. Prior to Medallia, Fred worked at various enterprise software companies in social media monitoring, e-commerce, and data management. He is very passionate about helping companies improve their customer experience, which he knows ultimately benefits both the employees of that company and their customers. With that, Fred, it's great to have you with us today, and everybody is looking forward to hearing more about how to improve their VOC efforts and customer experience. So take it away.
Thanks a lot, Anthony. I appreciate the introduction and this very neat opportunity to be able to speak to some of the folks who follow your boot camps. I know you guys do a great job of evangelizing voice of the customer and customer experience, and we really appreciate that. And so thanks for having me. So I think we can go to the next slide.
There you go.
Great, thank you. So what I'll be covering today is kind of what we at Medallia think of as the kind of the state of the art in voice of the customer and customer experience software. And we've been doing this for around 18 years now, and have grown to be one of the leaders in the space, in the software space. We have hundreds of some of the largest companies in the world using Medallia to capture feedback from all of their customers at every touch point, whether that be in 20 or 30 countries around the world. So like, for instance, Hilton uses Medallia, and Citibank and Vodafone in many countries around the world. And from whatever touch point, whether it be the call center or website or really any touch points with their customers. And so our system captures that feedback and then puts it back out to many thousands of people so that they can get insights and then take action based on that feedback to actually improve customer experiences. So that's what we do, build the software for that. So we can go to the next page. Great. And many of you who are following the area have probably heard something like this, that people buy the best experiences. They don't just buy products anymore. It used to be that you could do a whole lot of advertising about a product, and in the absence in the old days of things like social media and mobile phones and texting and instant communications, people kind of had to trust the brands, and they would get a product, and who knows what kind of experience they had in buying the product, servicing the product, returning, etc. Now it's really easy for people to kind of do their checking ahead of time, of course. And also many companies, many service providers out there are selling very similar products. In a kind of mature economy, especially like the U.S. economy, everybody's selling the same iPhones, or they're selling the same Samsung phones. They're selling cars that all have a very similar level of quality, right? So, how are they going to, make decisions? Well, a lot of it is, how well does this company treat me in the past, treated my friends in the past? And that's very hard to hide. So, you also hear phrases like customer experience is the new marketing. Because you just can't hide from delivering bad experiences anymore. So we can go to the next slide. And many companies recognize this. They know they need to compete on the basis of customer experience. In fact, I believe Gartner put out that something like 87% or 85% of companies expect to be competing primarily on the basis of customer experience going forward. And you can see here, 84% of firms aspire to be a CX leader, with Forrester finding these results. However, only 1 out of 5 companies actually delivers the good or better customer experience that they wish they could. And so, why is that? Why are companies having such a struggle to actually deliver a good customer experience? Well, we would argue that it's because they're not actually testing and listening and finding out what their customers think across all of the touch points. So let's go to the next slide. So what we advocate, for at Medallia, and what we see as kind of the future state in the market is large companies, small companies, capturing feedback at all customer touch points for all of their business units around the world. Whether that be, again, in the call center, the website, mobile apps, if there's been retail stores, bank branches, B2B selling, no matter what, however you touch your customer, it's important to capture feedback from all of those touch points, and then bring all that data back and deliver research caliber analytics, in the case of our customers, to tens of thousands of employees by role. And it's by getting this feedback into the hands of people at the executive suite, research groups, product groups, and also at the front lines in the retail stores, you can actually change the culture of a company by allowing people to see their own feedback. So many of our clients actually have tens of thousands of users on the platform, and what are all those people doing? Why would you need tens of thousands of people accessing the system? So for instance, Marriott has somewhere around 50,000 users on our platform, and many other companies do the same thing. Well, what they're doing is they're giving the feedback, getting it into the hands of people at the front desk, of people in the restaurants, of people cleaning the rooms, in addition to the people managing the hotel properties and the people managing the entire organization. And by giving people that access, people can see how to self-improve, right? They see their own feedback, and it turns out, by the way, that when people see their own feedback, 80% of the feedback tends to be positive. And so it's actually very energizing. One of our large retail customers who uses Medallia and has 60,000 users on the platform says, using this system is like giving free energy to all of my employees, because most of the feedback ends up being positive, and one of the leading indicators of happiness of employees is receiving feedback, both negative and positive, but when it's on the majority positive, it's very energizing. And so then the other thing that we advocate for, the main principles, are operationalizing the data. So on a daily basis, many of our clients have what they call the morning coffee with Medallia, and they have a huddle or a small group meet to look at the feedback from yesterday, look at the feedback that's coming in the morning today, and find out what they can be doing better, right? Where maybe there's olive oil spilled on aisle 3 of the grocery store, and they need to go clean that up so that 10 other people don't experience that same issue. So those huddles are super important. And then also closing the loop with all customers who give them a very low score is also super important as far as operationalizing the data. And it does two big things. First of all, of course, it recovers that customer. It turns out that statistically speaking, and we see a lot of statistics because all these companies are running on our platform, which is a cloud-based platform. So we're running the whole data center where all this feedback is coming in. And it turns out that people who when you close the loop with them, they end up being bigger promoters than your average customer. So somebody who might have been a 2 out of 10 in terms of like a net promoter score when you reach out to them, when you talk to them and say, oh, I'm sorry, help me understand what happened, and we'll fix it for next time. They end up being higher promoters than your average customer, which is really amazing. So you're really recovering a customer, and you're also learning what went wrong, because quite often when somebody gives you a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10, they don't write why the score was low. They just give you a number. And so by sending them an email or calling them to figure out what happened, you actually learn what specifically happened. Like maybe one of the bank tellers was out at a party the night before and is not feeling too good the next day, right? And so you can go talk to that person and say, hey, we've had a couple of complaints. Why don't you go take a nap and then come back tomorrow when you feel better, and you fix issues right away, when they're happening. So that's closing the loop. And so, getting back to this, delivering research caliber analytics and feedback, internally to tens of thousands of employees, and tracking all the business units around the world, doing all of this will lead to global customer health, because you're tracking everything all over the world. And it's very similar to the way an accounting system would deliver global financial health. With software like Medallia that's running across all business units, where you consolidate feedback so the executives can see the entire company. It's very similar to how they can they get a global profit and loss figure from their financial accounting system. Medallia can give you a global customer health figure across all your business units, just like an SAP can give you a global profit and loss figure. So that's kind of the vision, is that leverage a platform that can capture feedback from all touch points. And that's kind of the key next point. If you go to the next slide. So McKinsey has done a lot of research on journeys. That's one of their core key pieces of philosophy, is track customer journeys, not just customer touch points. And the big point they discovered in their research over many years is you're only as good as your worst touch point. So you can be doing great in a store level, but if you deliver a subpar experience on the website when somebody's researching information, or if you deliver a subpar experience in the call center, then people will look at that as the biggest reflection on your company, not the great experience they had in the store, and it brings down your overall score quite low. And so as Janet here is looking for a new phone, she might search in Google, she might compare options on your website, she might call to get assistance. She goes ahead and buys the phone, maybe in the local store, and then she's setting it up and then using the phone. So what is the overall experience? You really need to track those entire journeys through multiple touch points to get the full picture of her experience. With key questions: what does she think of her experience? Where can we improve? And then how do we make these experiences better? So what are the insights coming out of these touch points that help us make it better? So that's what a multi-touch point capability can do. So again, the core recommendation in this area is, if you have all these types of touch points, stores or bank branches, for instance, websites, mobile apps, social reviews, contact centers, could be messaging, capture feedback at all the touch points and bring it all into one system. And then it'll make it very easy for you at a global level to understand where you're strong and where you're weak and how to improve. And the great thing about Customers First Now is that they offer, journey mapping services, right? So it's a great complement to what we do with software. So they can come in and help you understand what are the touch points that matter, for a large company, so that you can make sure and get the right touch points mapped and then track those with the appropriate surveys. The other big point that we, that I made earlier and that we talk about with our customers is provide role-based analytics to tens of thousands of employees. And again, by doing this, by being transparent and open about what's happening with customers, you can change the culture of the company. when frontline staff see their own feedback, it really does change that culture. And one of the key capabilities you may look for in a platform is it mobile enabled? And I think most of the platforms are becoming mobile enabled. We're now in our third generation of mobile, and it really does open it up so that employees, whether they be store managers who are running around the store all the time at, say, like Home Depot or Lowe's, which are a couple of Medallia customers, very, very large stores, right? So they're not sitting in front of their computer all day, right? They're running around, and if they get an alert, they get it on their phone, and they can close the loop with somebody right there on their phone. Or if they get an alert and they see good feedback, and it's positive feedback for one of their employees, they might be standing there right next to an employee, and they can give them a pat on the back right there. Or go take action to fix something that was a problem immediately, so 10 other people don't experience that same problem. So getting that feedback to the frontline employees so they're energized, so they see the positives, they see how they can improve, it's super important. And one really interesting thing is many clients actually put a little, like a dial there that shows how the employee is comparing to their peers. And this is not by name, but it helps them see, okay, I'm in the top 10% or the bottom 30% of my peers on the front desk, say, and I see what I'm doing well, and I see what I can be doing to improve right here on my phone. And so it's kind of gamifying the whole self-improvement aspect. And anybody with kind of ambition kind of looks at that and says, okay, now I know what I need to do to improve because I see the feedback coming through. I see what I do well. And then I see kind of where I stand compared to my peers. Again, not by name, but, am I in the top 10%? And anybody with ambition really wants to self-improve, so they'll use that information to keep getting better. And that really does change culture. And one of the really cool things is that our president and CEO, Amy and Berga, a married couple, by the way, one of the things that gets them most excited is when the CEOs of many of our clients come to them and say, hey, this system, really changed the culture of my entire company. And that happens quite often, so it's really rewarding. And we actually are able to get a lot of statistics, again, out of the system, and we track this very closely. And you can see from some of these charts that on the left, net promoter scores are higher when employees give more employees access to customer feedback. So you see across the bottom, you see the number of employees who are getting access to feedback. It goes from 1 to 250 all the way up to 2,000 plus. And as you're giving more employees access to feedback, you see the net promoter score is going up. It's more operationalized. People are seeing their own feedback. They're self-improving. And then another chart here on the right shows that net promoter scores are higher when employees review feedback more frequently. So if employees are reviewing feedback 2 days or less per week, you see a lower number. When you go up to 5 days or more per week, you see it's a much higher number on average. Again, this is our averages across many customers that we reviewed. The other thing I mentioned is, having huddles, right, to review the feedback on a daily basis. This happens very, very often with our hotel clients, who are some of our oldest clients. There's some of the companies out there that really understood, how customer experience impacts their business, because, you have a lot of frequent travelers who go to the same city all the time. And it turns out that and so they'll have a morning coffee where they review yesterday's feedback and what they can do to improve their, service the following day. And employees who are recognized when they, receive this feedback on a daily basis or weekly are 5 times more likely to be promoters of their company, and are 50% more likely to be around in 6 months. Likely to say they plan to stick around for 6+ months. So this reviewing feedback with employees, giving people credit when they get a great review and stuff like that, really improves employee morale, and it shows that the work they're doing matters to their customers. So and it's appreciated by the firm. So it's something we strongly advocate for is having huddles on a regular basis at the local level to show the importance of the feedback and also to give people credit when they're doing a great job. And one interesting example of this is Comcast, which does give feedback to the front lines in their organization, in the call centers in particular, and also in the servicing areas. Comcast is on a wonderful journey to improve their customer experience. There's a whole case study written about it that we worked on with them and collaborated. And they're just super passionate about, doing the best they can to improve. And they're seeing, amazing increases in employee net promoter scores, and also in reduced call volume to the call centers by learning what it actually takes to improve customer experience. And one of the really interesting stories I heard was when some of our people visited one of their call centers when they were just getting up and running with the system. They were only 3 months into it, and they had only gotten like 3 of their call centers up and running. This is a year or two ago, and then they still had quite a few more call centers to go. But they said that their call centers that were up and running with the system, where their call center employees were seeing their own feedback, were seeing 50% less turnover in employees than their call centers without the Medallia system in it. And it turns out one of the big reasons they cited was that people were seeing their own feedback. It was giving them more opportunities to talk to their managers about their performance, and they were feeling more fulfilled in their jobs when they saw that there was a lot of positive feedback coming back, reinforcing the positive things they were doing on calls. And they were also learning how to improve in other areas. So it was really, really nice story. So the final kind of major area that we wanted to cover today was, operationalizing the feedback. You may be aware that at Medallia, we call what we do operational customer experience management, because we believe that taking action on the data flowing in on a constant real-time basis is as important, if not even more important, than the insights you get from the data coming in. And that's why we advocate for shorter surveys, and with open ends to apply text analytics to get insights. But with shorter surveys, people view them as less daunting. They're more likely to take that survey, and it gives you more opportunities to operationalize when you have a higher completion rate. So again, let's go to the next slide. But closing the loop and the local team huddles are super important for this. So one of the principles that we strongly believe in is, triggering alerts when somebody has a bad experience in the store or in the bank branch or the auto dealership, because if somebody takes the time to write a review of how you did and they had a bad experience, you should kind of honor that and then close the loop with that customer. So what I think most systems do, what our system does, is it actually triggers alerts if somebody has a bad experience that go to the store manager. So that person can see kind of what happened and also get back to that customer. And it's very helpful to have pre-populated templates. So, a system that can pre-populate a template to a client saying, dear Mr. Jones, we know you visited our dealership on this date and got some service, and we saw that you had a bad experience. We'd love to set up a time to talk and see what happened and see how we can improve. So systems like Medallia have this built right in, so that even on the mobile device, a manager can be walking around the auto dealership, get this alert, and respond to that customer in real time with pre-built templates. Because the easier it is to respond to a customer, the more likely that operational person, the bank manager, the dealer, auto dealer, the store manager, the more likely they're going to close the loop with that customer right away if it's very easy to do. And that's what systems like Medallia do their best to facilitate that and make sure it's really easy to close the loop. And so, the store manager, when they call back that customer or they set up a call, they can learn what went wrong. and also recover that customer. Show some sympathy, maybe give a little incentive to come back. But it's really key because doing this in real time helps you find out and fix things in real time. So let's say somebody, again, like slipped on olive oil in aisle 3 of the grocery store. When you close the loop and you find out that happened, then you can go fix that so a lot of people don't experience that same issue. So I already mentioned, response templates on all the mediums. And then this, it's good if the system actually tracks the alerts. And to confirm that this closed loop action is taken, most of our clients actually require their employees who are responsible for closing the loop to close the loop within 24 or 48 hours. And so, this alert tracking is very easy for the employees to see and also for management to see. And if the different, say, hotel properties or bank branches are not closing the loop the way they're supposed to, the system will trigger secondary alerts to go up to higher level management to make sure that this policy is being enacted. And again, I go through all this because it's the policy that's important to closing the loop, right? And it's nice also to have a system that helps enforce that policy. And what we see across our client base, and again, we have many hundreds of big clients using the system, is that closing the loop makes a huge difference in CX metrics, right? We see a plus 23 net promoter score point boost for companies that close the loop with customers versus companies that do not close the loop. So that's why you hear me talking about it so much, and it's such a big deal to operationalize the feedback, to close the loop, to change the culture by getting employees involved in fixing these day-to-day problems. So it's not just looking at the stats, it's not just looking at the insights, it's operationalizing the data at the front lines to fix issues in real time that we think actually improves customer experience points dramatically. And then of course you do want to get the global insights and find trends and change the structural things that can also help improve customer experience. But you need to do both in equal parts. The frontline changes as well as the kind of strategic changes.
Fred, I'd just like to remind the audience that if they do have any questions, to send them in using the questions dashboard on their control panel. And we got a few in already, so I would love to get some more so you can answer those.
That's great. Anything that I should answer right now, or do you want to wait till the end?
No, we can wait.
Okay, sounds good. So another really interesting statistic that we found across, one of our very large hotel clients. So one of our hotel clients has 6,000 properties in 50 countries around the world. And they're using Medallia to capture feedback across all those properties in 20 different languages, etc. And one of the things they found is that when the managers of the local hotel properties close the loop on social media sites, and the Medallia system can capture feedback across social channels as well as surveys, and it allows you to also get back to those customers using the system to those social sites like TripAdvisor, etc. That when the managers do close the loop with customers and answer issues and respond to them, then they see year-over-year occupancy rate changes that are higher when they are closing a higher percentage, responding to a higher percentage of the social media. And we think it's because when people are evaluating hotels that they want to stay at in a certain location, they actually do look at the reviews, and if they see that the local manager is actively responding on social sites, then we think that it creates a positive sign for that property that the management really cares, and it increases their revenue. So we see this as a consistent type of statistic that we see across our hotel clients. The other concept that I'd like to talk about is leveraging a system, a VOC system, to test and learn from new ideas. Many of you may have heard that on websites, the kind of the traditional way of kind of optimizing a website is to do A/B testing, right? Where you maybe try 2 different colors of a web page or 2 different descriptions or 2 different layouts, and then you see which one simply works better. As people are traversing your website, you send some down one path and some down another, and if this set of colors, this set of pages kind of works better, then that's the dominant strategy, and you kind of change your website to use that. Well, you can do something very similar in retail stores or bank branches or auto dealerships, leveraging a VOC system, right? And if the system lets you do that, and I think ours does, and maybe others do as well, where you can maybe run tests. I'll give you some examples. One of our hotel clients had a couple of different examples of new breakfast areas that they wanted to set up, and so they actually built out in several different locations breakfast areas that one of them looked more modern, one of them looked more traditional, and then they were going to then upgrade all of their breakfast areas across their thousands of hotel properties, right? And so they ran a test, and they used the VOC system to see which one of them worked better. And they found that one of them, was clearly the better option for redesigning all of their breakfast areas. And so they were able to use the customer feedback to do that. And these are just the existing normal surveys. They just added a question for those particular locations, and they were easily, just with normal feedback surveys, able to get the differences. And so this is what this chart is kind of showing is, you have an impacted group, the group that's leveraging the new model, and then you have a comparison group, which is the general population, right? So, after making the change, you can see whether there was a positive or a negative, impact on that change in the surveys. So that's something that we strongly kind of encourage, and we understand many of our clients leverage the VOC system and the ability to add new questions whenever they want to kind of test new ideas, new structures they want in their business to see which ones work better. And one good example of this was our customer Sam's Club, who was trying out some new technology for faster and easy checkouts. And so they were able to easily kind of add a new question to certain stores who are using this new technology in a pilot format, and see kind of what people felt about the technology. Was it working properly? What could they do to improve that technology? And then they were able to also, of course, check the overall experience of these pilot stores with the general population of stores that didn't have the pilot, and see, okay, was it creating an overall net benefit in the customer feedback scores to do this, to use this new technology for Scan and Go Mobile. And I believe they found that it was an improvement. They were able to tune the service as they were working on it, and it, the system offered a lot of insights into that test. So just to leave you with just a couple of final ideas on things that can get you started if you're just getting into this CX journey. So first of all is just try calling a customer back who gave that constructive feedback. See how it works. We have some customers. I'll give you an example. BBVA is a large bank that works across many countries. As we were rolling them out in Latin America, we were strongly advocating for closing the loop, when a customer had a bad experience. And they were not sure they wanted to do that. They felt like it might, take a lot of time for their local, branch managers to do that. And so what we said is, the system allows you to throttle back how many alerts are triggered to close the loop. And so you can say, okay, we only want to close the loop with our really kind of gold customers, the ones with, large relationships with the bank, and let's only do a couple of them per week. And so they said, okay, we'll do that. Maybe that won't be so bad. And so they started with just a couple of alerts per week per branch, very low impact, and just for, kind of their A-list customers. And so the interesting thing is that by the end of the first month, the bank decided to turn it all on, to do much more alerts and closing the loop, because they found that it was so important and to have that dialogue with their clients when they had a bad experience and fix those situations, because these were their important clients, and some of them were quite unhappy. And so it was really healthy for the bank to keep those customers by closing the loop with them, by starting that dialogue. And so they said, turn it on, turn it way up to 11. So, we advocate for people trying it out, and then you're going to get that experience of closing the loop, and you're going to feel like, wow, I need to do more of this, because it gets you back to that kind of, day when, people really knew their customers, in that local store. The second thing we recommend doing, just to take the easy steps to get started, is start recognizing a colleague who did something special for a customer. Right? Hold that up, and you'd be amazed at the goodwill that creates in the company environment, in a local store or a local dealer, whatever the local office is, and then you'll want to do it on a regular basis, because it really makes a difference in the culture. The other area is find a potential CX improvement that isn't costly and test it. Make a change and see if it actually makes a difference in your local score versus other stores that aren't doing it. You'd be amazed at what the data can show, by making these little tests and see what happens. So we see customers doing this on a regular basis. Some of our large clients are really well known, including some of the large telephone manufacturers, for leveraging this capability of CX testing to really improve their customer experience. So highly recommend it. Great.
Okay.
I think we're done with the main part.
Awesome, Fred. Yeah, Fred, we got some good questions here for you too. So I think people want to stick around to hear some of the questions and the answers. A couple of questions came in on your terminology, your closing the loop terminology. The first question is, can you just reiterate the meaning of close the loop? Just being, very specific about what you guys mean by that.
Yeah, sure. For us, closing the loop means, triggering alerts when a customer has a bad experience. Somebody gives you a 2 out of 10 after visiting your store or your bank branch or whatever, or maybe it's a business-to-business interaction and they had a bad experience. So closing the loop in the system means triggering alert that goes to the manager where that challenging situation occurred, and the manager then typically gets this alert, says George Peterson in your branch had a bad experience on this day, and then it gives you the option to select a template, and the template could be a pre-built template says, Dear George, thank you for visiting our store on X date. We understand you had I see that you had a bad experience with something, and I'd love to set up a time to talk to you. And so the closing loop in the system is both a software thing that allows you to very easily get back to that customer with an email to set up a time to talk to them. Or you can even, in many times, right in the system, you'll see there's a phone number that you can call to call that customer and say, hey, I saw that you had a bad experience. Can we help fix that somehow? Okay. So closing the loop is actually calling that person back or emailing that person and to set up a time to talk to them.
So closing the loop is taking care of the issue in real time, or as close to real time as you can get. Okay.
That's correct.
Got it. Thank you. So on that same topic, question is, on closing the loop, doesn't that take a lot of time and resources? Do companies need to hire new people to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that we do get from many of our clients when we're advocating for it and we're setting up the system, et cetera, like the story I mentioned. And what we do is this: is we say, okay, well, if you really have strong concerns about that, we can give you examples where it isn't a huge burden. It's actually very helpful. But if you really still feel like it's going to be an issue, we can again throttle back how many alerts your local managers are going to get across, let's say, your 1,000 hotels or your 1,000 bank branches or whatever, so that maybe they're only getting a couple per week. And usually when you close the loop, it only takes like 5 or 10 minutes to talk to this person, to make them feel better, to understand what went wrong, and to fix the situation. But we can throttle it back, in the rules of the system, so that you only have to do a couple, and then once you start getting good at it, then you can open it up to more by making the rules a little looser. But typically, no, it doesn't require adding new people. And what we find is that the benefits of talking to a few clients, starting that dialogue, highly outweigh any kind of time it's going to consume for a local manager to close the loop with a customer. And again, we facilitate that closing the loop dramatically by having pre-built templates that make it as easy as looking at the template, making sure it looks right, maybe making a few edits, which you can do, and then hitting go. And so that, like, just the act of closing the loop itself can take, under 10 or 20 seconds.
So yeah, because I have a feeling that you're right. There are definitely benefits to closing the loop and to addressing people's issues that might manifest in either higher retention rates or higher revenue, things like that. We actually have a question kind of similar to that. The question was, what are some of the bigger benefits of implementing a VOC program in the first place? So maybe you could expand on that.
Yeah, the big benefits that most of our clients see, they're a couple of areas. One of them is lower churn of clients, right? So if you look at many industries today, insurance in particular, the insurance companies will see anywhere from 20 to 30% customer churn per year. This is like they have to go out and find new customers, and then they lose 20% of their clients on an annual basis, right? And so if you create loyalty by closing the loop with customers who have an issue, by improving your processes, by making it easier to work with, one of the big benefits that the systems that we see coming out of it is that there's lower churn rates, and that translates into bigger revenue, right? The other thing is that it's proven in many times across many of our clients, because a lot of our clients tie implementing a program like this, implementing software like this, to an ROI, right? And so they have an ROI in mind, and then they track it closely. And what they see is that clients who are promoters, who are give you higher scores versus lower scores, actually spend more with your company. They buy more products. They return more often. If you're an auto dealership or whatever, bank branch, they use more of your products. They're promoters they bring other customers. But just that buying more and staying longer as a client translates into a dramatic ROI for a system. We've seen cases where a company might spend a few $100,000 on a system like Medallia per year, which is basically like adding one employee, and the return they see from it is in many millions of dollars, because it's dramatically giving them insight into how to improve their business across all the touch points, and also enabling people to self-improve, so that customers, as their net promoter score is going up, they're able to actually track per point of score going up how much it impacts their revenue in a positive way. So it's revenue impact, it's lower churn, it's reputation in the market. Those are some of the big benefits.
Yeah, it sounds very familiar to me, actually, coming from Customers First Now with our journey mapping and our CX services, we hear the same exact kinds of things, motivating people to take the right actions internally, and it definitely affects the positive CX experience, and affects positive financial returns. Let's see, we have a question coming in here. Let's see. I'll just read you the question because I'm not sure I understand it, but let's see. It says, how does the platform convert a specific data point into an insight that can be operationalized?
Yeah, so when we talk about operationalizing data, there are a couple of things that we do, right? So if you have a specific data point, this is typically from a customer, who had a bad experience, like maybe they walked into a Starbucks, who's not a Medallia customer, by the way, and the coffee was really sour or something like that, right? And they buy it, they walk out, they taste it, it tastes negative, and they also happen to get a survey, because our systems like Medallia, they trigger surveys in real time that go to those customers. The faster you get them to provide feedback, the better, because then you can take action. So, the person has a bad tasting coffee, they respond on the survey, hey, this coffee tasted really, really bad, and then that can go to the Starbucks manager within minutes. And so when we talk about operationalizing a data point, when that customer had a bad experience, we talk about getting that survey out to that customer and then getting the results into that manager's hand via an alert very, very quickly. So the manager can see, hey, this mocha, this customer just ordered was really poor tasting. They can go over and try it and see, okay, how did that taste? A lot of my customers are getting these drinks and via drive-through, or they're leaving the store, so they're not there anymore to tell me. So I'm going to go check it, and then the store manager can find, there's a sour batch or something. Something's going wrong with my coffee maker, right? And so they can fix that situation. So again, 20 more customers don't experience it. So when I talk about operationalizing the data point, that's what I'm kind of referring to. But also, we have other situations where you can use text analytics to look for certain words and then trigger alerts off of certain words. So if it's a data point on, coffee tasting bad or something like that, that can also trigger an alert using text analytics to then go to somebody to say who can then take actually immediate action on it. Other people may have different definitions of operationalizing a data point. So for instance, in text analytics, or as you're analyzing vast amounts of feedback, you can also find something that's very interesting. And then one of the things that customers do need advice with, we find, is what are the governance policies? Like, who actually takes this feedback and goes and makes changes to the business? That's a whole other level of change management, of governance policies of your CX program, because maybe if it's a research team that's using the system, they don't have a lot of power to actually make change. So as executives of an organization, you need to kind of have a methodology where these insights are actually taken seriously, and there's an official channel for getting those into the hands of people who can make a difference. So that's a whole other area of data points causing organizational change and operationalizing change.
So yeah, I think it's a good answer. I mean, your coffee example was perfect. That shows an actual single data point affecting the operations in close to real time of that coffee shop. So I think that's a good answer. We only have a couple of minutes left, Fred. I want to get at least this one last question in. So you talked about what is the state of the art in the VOC and in VOC, and so I think this question is, what are the big trends coming in voice of the customer kind of technology in the market space?
Yeah, well, as one of the leading companies in the space, we really do try to stay on top of any kind of new trends. Some people out there say, well, people are tired of taking surveys. We still see a lot of people answering surveys. So, but there are a lot of new channels emerging. So you see a lot of social media channels like Facebook, where you now have people using Facebook chat. You have systems like WeChat out of China and others that are changing the way people communicate. And so one of the things that we're doing is to stay on top of all these new areas, new ways of communicating, and enabling our system to work through those new areas. So we don't become obsolete someday, right? We're always going to continually adapt, and I assume others in the market are going to do the same to be where the customers are. Where do they like to communicate? What are the new touch points that are emerging, and staying on top of those. So I think that's the challenge that we take on, going forward with engineering and software development. It's staying on the leading edge of where are people interacting with their companies that provide them services, and what communication methods are they using. So for instance, we can already do surveys over SMS, but we need to be able to do surveys over Facebook chat and all the new methods of communicating that are out there.
That's right. That's a really great point, and let's finish up on that. If everybody can look back at your presentation on the slides, you can see our closing slide here, which is really just about contacting and interacting with us, Customers First, now as well. So if you have questions about anything that you heard on the presentation, or you want to talk about VOC strategy in general, we're more than happy to talk to you in person about that. Just email me at marketing@customersfirstnow.com, and I'll put you in touch with the right people. And please try to take advantage of that, because I know a lot of people have told me in person that they're not sure exactly what that means, but really all it means is we're going to have a phone call conversation with you and answer your questions one-on-one for your specific company. So it's really there's no obligations, there's not a lot of intimidation really. And then also we have our journey mapping software, which is at our website at CFN-Insight. There you can see the link on the slide. And if you haven't heard about that in previous webinars or previous communications from us, I'd be surprised. But again, email me at marketing@customersfirstnow.com, and we're more than happy to set up a demo or a 30-day trial for you. So with that, also you're going to receive an email follow-up in a couple of days with the link to the video replay of this webinar as well. So you'll receive that if you missed it, or if you have somebody else that you think needs to hear this, you can just simply forward that email to them. Okay, so again, thank you, Fred, for a very informative presentation. I appreciate your time and effort going into that. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. If you have any additional questions, just reach out to us and we'll get you in touch with one of our CX practitioners. And I hope to see you on our future webinars as well. So thank you, everybody, for your participation.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. And thanks, Anthony, again for inviting Medallia to present.
Our pleasure. All right, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.